This is the Powered Up Podcast, show 125. He said to me, don't let anyone ever tell you you don't deserve a summer break because you don't work 12 months a year. He said, teaching is an emotionally draining business, and you deserve your summer break to recharge your batteries and go back 100% again next year.
Welcome to a real-world education with insight and advice from teachers in the game, where current and former educators reveal what truly sets apart the great teachers and what it takes to make a positive impact on students. Whether you're in pre-service learning, new to the game, or a seasoned veteran, this is the show for you. You'll leave feeling inspired to take action because we are powering education by empowering you.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Ken Erman, host of the Powered Up Podcast, and I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Matt, the Cabana Man Rogers. Matt, happy summer, my friend.
We're almost there. Are we time?
Yes, sir.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, my friend. So, a little trivia to kick things off for you. What was the show number of our 2022 summer send-off show?
Ooh. I mean, with just basic math,
You
this
should
is
be able to guess within
125.
one or two.
Within one or two. So 52 weeks, 122, 125. I'm going to go 73.
Spot on.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, I was sweating over here, guys.
Not sweating because of the guess, but because of that mental math you had to perform on the spot.
Well, I wasn't positive. That was just oh my gosh, I'm clearly in a mental state of summer, and you're asking me to do a math problem right now? I've got to carry numbers and borrow. Oof. Good thing I'm teaching math next year.
So, Matt, so this is going to be a nice, short, sweet episode. And actually, before I get into any questions I want to ask you, I want to remind our audience about our second annual summer series coming out, which we are both very excited about. All those recordings are done and set and ready to go. And the idea of the summer series is this was actually your idea, if you remember, last spring.
I'm so smart.
Was to break away from our traditional format, which we are very proud of, where we get to know educators, speakers, authors, leaders, and dive super, super deep on a specific topic. And I think you and I have grown, and we've done an even better job over the years, but we don't let our guests off easy. We really dig into them about their passions and their answers and their logic and their instructional practices. And we don't let them just kind of skirt the surface. And we often hear from our guests after the recording how much they appreciate the depth of questions that we ask them. And we wanted to take that one step further. And so our summer series last year, we had 9 shows on specific topics, and I want to highlight the 9 shows that we have set coming out for the summer of 2023. So we view this as a little bit more of a professional development opportunity for you to think about, and we are pretty intentional with the shows that we select to debut over the summer because we feel they'll pair with the guests that we've had before. So we invite guests we've had on our podcast to come back as additional co-hosts, and also things that make sense for the summer. So here is a breakdown for the 2023 summer series. First one is about stresses and joys of the teaching extras. So all the extra responsibilities that we have to take on as teachers, how do we balance that, find joy in that, and decide what to and to not do? And that was bringing back Jessica Som and Autumn Riviera for that conversation. The next one is accepting change and moving forward, which is a deep dive into the transition you have coming up this summer, moving into 5th grade. So that was just you and I. Then we have empowering struggling students, which was Raymond Benavides and Anthony Swan. And that was a really, really rich conversation about how we can best support students, especially those that we're struggling with or that are struggling in school. Then we have restorative practices with your lifelong best friend, but now he's more my best friend, Mike Azalina. And then we have digging deep on relationships. And with that, we had, let me look real quick. We had Candace Young and Bethany Petty come back. And I don't know if you want to add anything on this one specifically, Matt. We did not allow the conversation to stop at, you need to have good relationships with students, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give my summary at the end.
Okay, perfect. So then we have a show on goal setting. We brought back Don Berg, who is a psychology researcher who gives us the science of goal setting. Followed by student-centered learning with Corey Henwood, who came back, and we talk about student-centered learning, about active learning, about how to get students to just be more active participants in the classroom. And then our last one is the future of education, which is a conversation with two of our local teaching friends, Tom Gulish and Ryan Anthony. And we talk about the future of education related to technology and STEM and other things related to that. So what do you think of the summer series this year?
So, we sat back and kind of put heads together a year ago, a little bit over, and said in, 73 some episodes, we've had awesome conversations that we keep on pushing the conversation to be more than surface level. So if we all intentionally set this as our focus, areas that are hard to describe, the parts that are the hidden sauce that you can't know all the ingredients, we bring the educators that we felt like really tapped into these topics to expand on these things that we all could benefit from, that honestly, and I'm not trying to take anything away from the year-long interviews because they're great, the most powerful episodes that I feel like we record in a year happen over the summer. Some of them shorter. That's our intention, is to make it shorter, because hopefully while you're listening to them, you're not driving to work, you're relaxing. But even if it's gearing up and you're cranking through them right before the school year, or you're spreading it out, all these target topic areas, and I would encourage you to check out last year's as well. It targets instructional areas that all of us as educators can connect to, understand, relate, and learn from, adjust a mindset. Because I think our whole goal behind the series is to get your mind right as you get ready to make an impact in that following year, and to peel back some of these things that you always grapple with. I mean, I know I do. Joe, you pointed out the episode talking about relationships. It's very quintessential in our final 4 questions, where we talk about, like, what are these things that every educator needs to hear and do, and what stands out, best piece of advice. We hear about so many of these topics, and then we move on to the next question. And so I'm really proud of what we put together. I hope you enjoy. Please feel free to, listen to at double speed and slow down at times that you hear Ken or I talking too much, because the guests really brought it this summer. And like I said, I'm just really proud of this, because it feels like we hit 75% of the way into this instructional book, that you're like, okay, I have all the context, I have all the understanding, all the situation I need to. What are the core things that I need to know? And I think we uncover so much of that through this summer series.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Matt said, going back to listening to last year. So if you're interested in doing that, you just have to scroll to show 74 through 82. So that was last year's summer series. So I think you put a bow tie on that really well. So Matt, what was teaching? So not podcast related. What was the highlight of your school year this year?
Highlight very clearly is related to mentorship. I we are privileged to have this podcast that we talk to no one, but oddly, people listen to us. It's surreal to me. And hopefully you enjoy what we speak. Hopefully you enjoy the guests more than you enjoy us. But we're grateful for you coming back. I think the point that I would make that I'm so proud of is I took a leap of faith last year saying maybe I could guide future teachers. And I witnessed a very young, very green teacher come in and become a must-have candidate for our school district. Watching him walk into the classroom that I'm leaving, which I'm psyched about, while also imparting a little bit of wisdom on a future student teacher that's coming back in the fall that is just going to absolutely crush it. So I would say I'm really proud of what my kids did this year, but the extra wrinkle in this school year above all others would be related to the mentoring student teachers. I'll turn it back over to you, I guess. In your role, you're doing many sessions of support, multiple in a day. And there's obviously big things that you're working through, both within your classroom and even outside of your classroom. What is something that you accomplished this year that either was I finally did it, or I'm so proud that we broke through in this way?
Mm-hmm. So this is year 3 for me as an instructional coach. And which seems kind of crazy. I always question myself that it's only my second year, but it is my 3rd year as an instructional coach. And my first year was coming back from the COVID shutdown. And so my school district, we were in session all year, and that was pure triage for an entire year. Second year was trying to get my feet wet as an instructional coach, because I really wasn't an instructional coach that first year, just because of being pulled into.
You were a survival coach,
and purely just being a triage support. And a lot of learning curves for me as a coach, where I overstepped, where I was too pushy, where I wasn't as reflective and as supportive as teachers needed. And so this year, I would say starting in the second half last year and this year, I really focused on being intentional with my relationships with the teachers and fostering the ones that I had positive rapport with and building on them and getting in their classrooms more and pushing them a little bit more, but also just making sure that I knew who all the teachers are. I'm in 3 middle schools and a high school that's very large. Knowing them, speaking, finding times to just sit in the faculty room, have conversations with them, saying hi to them, just simple things to make sure that when teachers see me, they feel comfortable with me. And I feel like in the last 2 months, there's just been a turning point in just the times that I see all the different teachers that I interact with, that a lot of times I'll have conversations with teachers and they clearly know me and they know some of my passions and they trust me. And I feel like I haven't interacted with them on a personal level. And so I feel like that kind of, I don't want to use the word reputation, but it's the only word I can think of, is kind of expanding. And I truly feel like the teachers in my district view me as a trustworthy resource. And so I feel like I'm going to be able to hockey stick my accomplishments next year. And I'm really going to be able to expedite them because I've gotten my relationships to a really strong point right now. And so I'm proud of that progress this year.
It's a beautiful thing. So we're recording this on the eve of my last day of the school year. And I'm grateful that we get to record this episode. My suntan is not great yet, which is just a series of freckles, but we are not quite relaxed. We are not quite done. But I just kind of want to speak to the privilege that we get as educators. And obviously you're not going to have this privilege to go back and change anything, but I go back to something we talk about in multiple episodes, but it really strikes me with what Mike Creed said on our second episode or third episode about how we forever will be the trivia question of who was your blank grade teacher. For this group, who was your fourth grade happens to be the same as your fifth grade teacher, but that's besides the point. I think we all recognize, and this is just a point that I want to make, that education is difficult. Teaching is really tough. And the state of education is one that can be very much a slippery slope, where we witness plenty of reasons to complain, point fingers, and acknowledge dissatisfactions. And some of that really comes down to venting, which is totally healthy. And Ken and I stay on or log on early and do that almost every episode. But I just want to remind everyone as you gear up for summer that you deserve this break. You absolutely do. But our jobs are easier than we think they are. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful. And I don't mean that to be unkind. But our job is icing on the cake. Our job is to impart development on kids. And there's just a huge privilege to that being our focus. And I struggle with hearing how difficult people have it in education. Because it's true. It's not an easy job. And there are tons of limitations that make it even harder. But I think that if we, as a group, change our mindset and remember the gratuity that we have in this position, especially as we rest up and we go into next year and we try to maintain that, we have absolutely one of the best jobs in the entire world. And I think that's getting lost a little bit. So I just want to kind of say, whether that's on my pedestal or not, I am so lucky to stand in front of a bunch of 9-year-olds every day and act like the most important thing that I can teach them is how to use a protractor. Like I am super privileged that I get to use my creativity to engage students to see themselves differently than they saw themselves before that activity. We are lucky. There are tons of hoops to jump through and tape to break. But as you listen, as we refine, as we adjust, just remember the why. And I think that gets overplayed, but the how as well. I think the how you got here will really get you in tune to allow you to focus on, what those next steps look like.
Yeah, absolutely. When you were saying that, I remember I was still in college. I worked in a restaurant in the area that I lived when I lived with my parents. And I ran into my former soccer coach, who was also a gym teacher. And we were having a 5-minute conversation. And I was probably in like my junior or senior year, or maybe I had graduated and I was subbing. I don't remember. I wasn't teaching full time yet. And he said to me, don't let anyone ever tell you you don't deserve a summer break because you don't work 12 months a year. He said, teaching is an emotionally draining business and you deserve your summer break to recharge your batteries and go back 100% again next year. And so I really think we always need to hear those reminders. So 2 questions for you. One, how do you, now this summer is a little bit different because I know you're transitioning and you have another classroom set up. So put that off the table. How do you typically force yourself to separate and recharge? And then also, let's just start with that. Go with that first.
The cliche is family time, vacations, the obvious. I've been tasked, I have no problem saying this. I have a counselor that I talk to weekly for individual and relationship based. And I've been tasked with intention of finding my own identity. And it's been something great. So the idea of finding balance, and as an adult that doesn't have kids yet, I have time still to figure out what my own identity is. So that's my joy, my challenge for this year is, what is something that is not grand, the vacations, the family time. What is something that, whether it's hobby or those type things, that bring me joy, and how can I figure out how to fully commit to that in times like summer, and how can I partially commit to that as a maintenance during the school year. I don't know if that quite answers your question, but there's a little transparency for you.
No, it does, and I appreciate that. And for me, it's a little bit different as a coach. So I'm going to try to reflect back as my time as a teacher. I made sure that I was not connected to email. I was not connected to any type of notification that I could receive from my district, because I'm off in the summer. I'm not responsible to check that. And so if you have it on your phone, get rid of it. Turn it off, I think permanently, but at least temporarily for the summer. So physically and digitally separating myself in that way. And I would put away my resources that I would use. So typically everything was technology based for me. So it was not going in and designing projects and designing activities. I would give myself a period of time where I had to be separated from that. So I'm going to parlay this in my strategy into the second half of the question I was going to ask you, was how do you do some goal setting or some reflection, and how do you think about the following year of what you're going to change or do different or improve? And so I would typically have one book that I read. I'm not a huge reader. I read throughout the year, but it takes me a while to get through a book. But in the summer, I could usually get through one related to a goal that I had, or an author that I had seen, or just one that I thought was a hot book in education right now. And I would have some sort of notepad where I could write down ideas that I had that I wanted to go back to, but I didn't want to dive deep into. And so if I had an idea of like how I wanted to change the structure of my reading classroom, I would jot notes down and then I would leave it. Enough that I would look at it and say, if I look at this in a month, am I going to remember what I was thinking? Because what I found was, when I physically separated myself and when I stopped thinking about my classroom and I stopped planning, and I might be reading this book or I might not be reading anything, I might just have this random thought. I wanted to capitalize on that. And I think you'll find that when you do separate yourself, you actually get these ideas more frequently and more in depth. And I wanted to write them down, but I didn't want to start working. I wanted to collect that thought and save it for mid-August, when I was ready to gear up and start working, and then further explore that. So what are some of your strategies for prepping for the new year, or setting a goal or something you want to improve on? What's that summer mindset like that for you in that sense?
I give kudos to anyone listening to educational podcasts like ours.
Yeah.
Because when I listen to podcasts a lot of times, which I listen to a bunch of them, I often am looking for things that are different than my day-to-day every moment. I don't have the mental real estate to handle that. So if I'm reading books, a lot of times which is not frequently as well, but it's usually about other topics that can kind of diversify my mindset. The thing that I think I like to consider is I let my sphere of influence guide me into things that I should see, whether that's using social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And I save a ton of reels that I think are interesting. I keep notes on my phone. I also, like you, can have a teacher wife that I can bounce ideas off of in long car rides. But realistically, I try to clear my head. I clear my head as much as I can to think as clearly when I am trying to be intentional as possible, because I want to, especially come middle of July when those back to school commercials start popping in, I want to kind of come from the point of view of, oh, this kid is going to have this challenge, or this is the accommodation that I need to make. It's from that bird's eye view point of view. In June, July, hey, pie in the sky. How do I make that reasonable? How do I make it realistic? How do I make it happen? And that's what goes into all the prep work that really comes down to meet the teacher night, because I feel like my classroom a lot of times is set. My mentalities, my intentions for the year are set going into the first day of school, really set by the tone of how I interact with families when they are so excited to see the space for the first time.
Mm-hmm. I think it's great. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I guess, Ken, as a total side note, as we're recording this in the almost summer, what does your quintessential summer day look like? And what is your least favorite part about the summer? I knew you were trying to wrap up, but I had to ask you something.
No, it's a good question. I like that. So my perfect summer day is I have two. So I'm going to give you two. I really don't care if
that's
you only
fine,
want one, because you always do this.
I know.
So we go to the beach every year. We go to Ocean City, New Jersey. We have time with my my mother-in-law, and then we also have time with my parents, my brother and his kids. And so both I enjoy the vacations back up to each other, so they make it convenient for us to just walk to drive from one house to the other. And so I love being at the beach. I love being down there with family. I love spending all day on the beach. I could sit down there all day. I could play in the sand all day with my kids, play in the ocean. So I love being at the beach. My wife and I love walking the boardwalk in the morning. Like, there's so much of the beach that I enjoy, because I make a really strong effort. Like, we have podcast things and I have other things to do over the summer. So again, I'm very intentional with making sure that's all set up and ready to just be on cruise control, so that I truly am just present and there with my family while we're down there. So that's one side of it, is the beach days are perfect. I absolutely love the beach. The other ones is just being home, waking up, drinking coffee on my patio, waiting for the kids to get up, doing breakfast with them, and just like hanging out in the yard all day, watching them play, work in our garden, just a very simple, plain day where we can just be at home together. So those are my two perfects. My least favorite part about summer, I really don't know that I have one. I'm gonna volley the perfect summer day to you, so I can get more time to think about what I don't like about summer.
All right, so I'll use the least perfect, least preferred. Ticks and mosquitoes absolutely drive me crazy. But
this year we've hired a company to spray our grass and our surrounding woods with cedarwood oil, so it's all natural, and supposedly keeps almost all the ticks and bugs away. So if that works, I'll let you know, and then you'll have to come up with a new answer.
Yeah, please report back. So, perfect day. We are very fortunate. Kristen, my wife's parents, have a little condo down in Ocean City. Nope, not Ocean City. Wilmington, North Carolina. I grew up going to Ocean City, and you said it. So that is the kickoff to summer, is sitting on the beach, putting my feet in the sand. It's a dog-friendly beach, so we can bring our two pups. But my all-time favorite activity is going into the Northeast, into New England area. My best friend lives up in New Hampshire and has a lake house. And wake up, coffee on the deck, I'm usually starting to look at, welcome back to school letters and those type things, but doing it on a beautiful setting is not the worst. Go out on the boat, fish for a little bit, go wakeboarding, eat a big piece of chocolate pie, and crash early. Go to sleep quite a bit early. So I think the reason I asked that question is I do want everyone to spoil themselves as much as you can with the opportunities that you have over the summer. And for some of us, that may be continuing to work. For some of us, that's looking at development ideas of how you can grow further. We hear almost every episode about how you have to sharpen the sword, which means you need to make yourself as well rested and prepared mentally, physically, emotionally before those 180 days of gauntlet come up again. So please take that time, however you would have defined those two questions. Hopefully mosquitoes are your biggest problem over the summer. So spend time with family, spend time with friends, sleep in a little bit.
Spend time by yourself.
Spend time by yourself, spend time in the woods, identify animals in the clouds, whatever it takes, kind of come to peace because you deserve the time.
Mm-hmm. I thought of my least favorite.
Oh, let's go for it.
When it's a nice day, you got the windows open, and then at about 11, 12 o'clock at night, it becomes incredibly humid and the ceiling fan just isn't cutting it. You can't get the right combination of ceiling fan and sheets, and you don't want to spend time closing all the windows in your house to turn the AC on in the middle of the night. That's my least favorite.
We could go through the whole thing. I love comforters. I don't overheat. Kristen overheats like crazy. So there is we just use Top Sheet, and that drives me crazy. That should have been my number one.
Yep. All right. So I reiterate everything Matt said. Take this time. I would encourage you to check out our summer series, check out all of them, pick the one that you think would align to what your goal is for the summer, but listen to them as you walk, as you drive to vacation or wherever you find that time. But take the summer to recharge, and you do that so that you can give your students the best version of yourself for the next school year. So Matt, cheers again to an awesome school year, and enjoy your summer, my friend, because we're going to see each other very little over the next couple months.
It's going to be weird.
Yep.
All right, guys, as we power down this episode, we hope you are powering yourself up. We'll switch it up a little bit. Stay well. And I guess we'll talk to you next week with the first installment of the summer series. Until then, have a great summer.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you haven't already, please subscribe on whichever platform you're listening to or watching us on YouTube. Each week, we get to talk to amazing educators who are making a positive impact on the lives of students, their colleagues, administrators, and education as a whole. It's been such a privilege every week to be able to talk to these incredible individuals, learn from them, grow with them, and better myself and all of education through these conversations. If you haven't already, please consider sharing this with a colleague, someone who can benefit and be powered up from the experience of listening to these incredible conversations. Because of Powered Up, we are powering education by empowering you.